Sheriff Todd Baxter, as you continue to ignore my Freedom of Information Law document demands for your public employee payroll, I'm going to narrate the plot of a film starring you. But first, I'll remind you of my Freedom of Information Law documents that you ignore, such as this one from July 6th. This is July 6th. This is over 2 months ago. And I'm going to point to you again. The key word there with the appropriate finger is law. You see the key word in a Freedom of Information Law document. I'm pointing to the word law for you, Sheriff Baxter, with the appropriate finger. So it says, I hereby apply to inspect, obtain a copy of the following records. Quote, the public employee payroll for the Monroe County Sheriff's Office of Monroe County Jail, and it has my signature there, September 6th. This is over 20 times that I sent you a document just like this for your public employee payroll. And every single time, you refuse to comply. And then on the 6th, the cost of a surveillance device purchased with taxpayer dollars by Monroe County Sheriff Todd Baxter and affixed to a building at 25 Penfield Road to monitor of Christopher Chichester at 26 Sanders Farm Drive, walks through the parking lot next to the building. So I sent that on July 6th. I didn't hear anything back to you. And this is the Holy Roman Todd K. Baxter parking lot right there. And you had the surveillance device right up there, and I was on it. It was on the phone with your deputy whack job, with your 6 deputy whack jobs descended on me for standing right there. Toughest, toothless, grass-cutting loser that Nayraj and Layla Kumar shot Crazy Town don't own that land. So, you refuse to provide me with your public employee payroll, even though your entire existence is because of the taxpayers in New York. You refuse to provide me with the cost of that device and the image of me on it, because if anybody ever saw that image, I'm not committing any crime, and I was in your jail for that. So I was in your jail, and I'm not committing any crime. And you're going to be hearing from me relentlessly about it. So, and then we have another Freedom of Information Law here document. I'm going to show you this here. And I love this picture here. This is your 13 public employees underwater in a pool. Where did you take this photograph? Why do you have your 13 employees underwater in a pool, in a wetsuit? What the hell are they doing underwater in a pool and not out on the job abridging the civil and constitutional rights of innocent New Yorkers like Chris Chichester at 26 Sanders Farm Drive in Penfield, New York? Total incompetence, buffoonery. I love it. So, you got that on your Facebook page. They're your employees. Freedom of Information Law. Document here. I got to point to the key word there. Top baby law. I know you were told there'd be no spelling. L-A-W. You got that? Sheriff Baxter. Cost to taxpayers for photography session approved by Monroe County Sheriff Todd K. Baxter to photograph 13 public employees underwater in a pool. So, Sheriff Baxter also sent you FOIL that you ignored, and I'm not going to read this one. But there's your public employee Ryan Fisher, that's Lola there, and you sent him out of Monroe County, out of New York State to the Super Bowl Atlanta because he was standing in front of Mercedes-Benz Stadium with his K9 Lola. So why is your public employee Ryan Fisher in Atlanta, Georgia, and not on the job in Monroe County? Can you explain that? Explain that, Todd. Because I really want to know. And you know why you're not going to explain that, Todd? Because you don't want anybody to know in Monroe County that you sent Ryan Fisher out of state, out of Monroe County to Atlanta, Georgia with his canine dog, Lola. So, did Ryan Fisher call Kings to sing to Lola on a plane flight down there? How much did that plane flight cost? How much did the hotel cost? So, Todd, I'm going to now narrate the plot of a film released on February 7th, 1974, starring you, Todd Baby. And this is a Mel Brooks production. Perhaps you've heard of him. And you were just magnificent in this film, Todd. So I'm going to now read the plot of this film starring you, Sheriff Todd Baxter of Monroe County. On the American frontier of 1874, a new railroad will soon be rerouted through Rock Ridge in order to avoid running through quicksand. Realizing this will make Rock Ridge worth millions, the conniving Attorney General Hedley Lamar wants to force Rock Ridge's residents to abandon their town and sends a gang of thugs led by his flunky Taggart to shoot the sheriff and trash the town. The townspeople demand that Governor William J. Lepetamain appoint a new sheriff to protect them. Lamar persuades dim-witted Lepetamain to appoint Baxter, a black railroad worker who was about to be executed for assaulting Taggart earlier. A black sheriff, he reasons, will offend the townspeople, create chaos, and leave the town at its mercy. After initial hostile reception, where Sheriff Baxter has to take himself hostage to escape, he relies on his quick wits and the assistance of Jim, an alcoholic gunslinger known as the Waco Kid, to overcome the townspeople's hostility. He subdues Mongo, an immensely strong, dim-witted, but philosophical henchman sent to kill him. Then he beats German seductress for hire, Lily von Stupp, at her own game, with Lily falling in love with him. Upon Mongo's relief, he vaguely informs Sheriff Bart of Lamar's connection to the railroad, so Bart and Jim visit the railroad worksite and discover from Charlie, Baxter's best friend, that the railway is planned to go through Rock Ridge. Just as Taggart and his men arrive, Jim shoots the thugs, forcing Taggart to retreat to Lamar. Lamar, furious after that his schemes have backfired, hatches a larger plan involving a recruitment army of thugs, including common criminals, Ku Klux Klanmen, Nazis, and Methodists. 3 miles east of Rock Ridge, Sheriff Baxter introduces the white townspeople to the black, Chinese, and Irish railroad workers, who have agreed to help in exchange for acceptance by the community, and explains he plans to defeat Lamar's army. They labor all night to build a perfect replica of their town as a diversion with no people in it, though Sheriff Baxter realizes it will not fool the villains. While the townspeople construct replicas of themselves, Sheriff Baxter, Jim, and Mongo buy time by constructing the Governor William J. Lepetamain Thruway, forcing the raiding party to turn back for a shitload of dimes to pay the toll. Once through the toll booth, the raiders attack the fake town populated with dummies, which are booby-trapped with dynamite bombs. After Jim detonates the bombs with his sharpshooting, launching bad guys and horses skyward, the Rock Ridgers storm the villains. The resulting brawl between townsfolk railroad workers and Lamar's thugs literally breaks the fourth walls. The fight spills onto a neighboring set where director Buddy Bazaar is directing the Busby Berkeley-style Top Hat and Tails musical number, then into the studio commissary for a food fight, and then out into the Warner Brothers film lot into the streets of Burbank. Lamar, realizing he has been beaten, hails a taxi and orders the drivers to drive me off this picture. He ducks into Grauman's Chinese Theater, which is playing the premiere of Blazing Saddles. As he settles into his seat, he sees Sheriff Baxter arriving on horseback outside the theater. Sheriff Baxter blocks Lamar's escape, then shoots him in the groin. Sheriff Baxter and Jim then go into Grauman's to watch the end of the film, in which Sheriff Baxter announces to the townspeople that he's moving on. Riding out of town, he finds Jim still eating popcorn and invites him to go to a nowhere special. Jim agrees to go with him because it sounds like fun and he's bored. They start to ride into the sunset on horseback, but stop at a chauffeured stretch limousine and continue onward in his vehicle. So, Todd, baby, you were just fantastic in this role. Playing yourself! That's my wonderful little guy. He's tried to take from me.